up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens. Le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. 8.6 beer. Intense by nature. And Locage. If the last time you went to Locage was when the Habs won the Cup, it's time you went back to Locage. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro on this Wednesday, December 7th. It's 2 minutes past 10 o'clock right here, and we're live on YouTube. We're live. I'm having a really bad hair day. Oh my God, look at this. This is a disaster. It's the second time it's happened this week. I think it's pretty safe to say that I need a haircut. Let me move everything out of the way here. What in the world is going on with my hair? Anyway, it's okay. Well, I can't fix it now. What am I going to do? Get it, pick up and leave? But anyway, it's Wednesday, December 7th. And, we're going live on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. And if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, please do so. It's absolutely free. And the more of you subscribe, it makes us pretty happy when you do. So it's all pretty cool. And we're talking Habs, and we're going to talk Habs for the next hour. And Eric Engels is going to join me in about a minute. Before he does, I'll also tell you that Chris from Sport La Tornade, who's got his store out in Vaudreuil-Dorion, is going to join me a little bit later on. We're going to talk about player cards. And I know I have a couple of questions lined up for Chris in regards to that. And by the way, I'm going to be hanging out at his store on Saturday afternoon. So that's something that we're going to talk about as well. There we go. Look at that. Trade day at Sport La Tornade. Bring your cards and trade with other collectors. That's going to be going on Saturday, December 10th from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. I'm going to try and get there as soon as I can. I will tell you that I'm going to be at a fundraiser in downtown Montreal for Les Enfants de Dr. Julien with my buddy Jean-Charles Lajoie, George Larac, and many others. I'm going to be there early Saturday morning, probably at around 8 o'clock in the morning. I'll probably get out of there for about noon and then probably make my way to Vaudreuil-Dorion. So I'll be there and I'll spend several hours in the afternoon. So if you want to drop by and say hello, I love stuff like this because you're my sick army. You've been with me from the beginning, and we're growing in numbers each and every day. And, it's not every day I get to meet some of you. And so when I do, I know it makes some of you pretty happy, but I have to tell you, it makes me pretty happy as well. The Sick Podcast brought to you in part by Lacage. If the last time you went to Lacage was when the Habs won the Cup, it's time you go back to Lacage. The menu will surprise you. And Yellow and I will be there next week. We'll tell you when. Maybe we can bump into you over there as well. Also brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. If you ship commercial freight and want to impress your boss with how much money you can save, get in touch with the logistics professionals at Energy Transportation Group. Email them at sick@shipenergy.com or visit their website at shipenergy.com. And also brought to you by these guys who have been with us since the beginning. And man, do we appreciate it. The Geloso Group 8.6 beer, intense by nature, the beer for those who follow their instinct and live their passions in order to make their mark. And by the way, they don't only bring you 8.6 beer, they bring you all the sangrias and they bring you all kinds, like a different line of products. It's many, many different products, which I have in my fridge and in my canteen, always ready when people come over for a visit. We take out the drinks and they make a lot of people very, very happy. Without further ado, joining me right now from sportsnet.ca, he's as plugged into the Montreal Canadiens as you're ever going to get. Eric Engels, what's going on? Is it me or I can't hear you? Am I the one having a problem here? Maybe I am. Maybe I am the one having a problem here. No, I don't hear Eric. Is it me? Is it me? Agnello and Sammy, let me know if it's me, because maybe it's me. And if it is me, I'd like to know what I have to fix here. I don't think it's me. I think I'm good. Here, I'm checking my phone. I think I'm good. Agnello, am I good? Agnello and Sammy are going to tell me if I'm good. This is the beauty of okay, so it looks like it's Eric, okay, the issue. And so that's, we're going to try and fix that. All right, we're going to try and fix that. All right, let's see here. Let's see. All right. No sound on Eric. Okay, so it's not me. It's Eric. We're trying to fix it. Okay, pretty good. Yesterday, a big win by the Canadiens. If winning is important to you, they beat the Seattle Kraken by a score of 42. If I'm not mistaken, it's the second time they played in Seattle. By the way, Mitch Garber, what a guy! A personal touch yesterday, the same way he did the first time they visited Seattle. He insisted that they bring in a singer who would sing "O Canada," the bilingual version of "O Canada," which they did, which was pretty special. And also during the broadcast, of course, they brought up the fact of it was the terrible anniversary that was December the 6th, 33 years ago yesterday. A terrible tragedy, of course, the shooting of 14 innocent women. And they brought that up on the broadcast as well. And that was also Mitch Garber who told them if they could mention that. So, Mitch, you're the best. Eric, do you hear me now? Do I hear you? I don't hear Eric. And now someone says that they can't hear me. What in the world is going on here? Geez, we've never had a show like this before. I think we should bring on Agnello here. Agnello, Sammy, and I know you guys don't like coming on, but I need to know what's going on here. I'm starting to think it's me. I want to make sure that I'm talking into something here.
No,
Hi, Agnello.
It's not you. It's Eric. He's going to log back on and try it, but it's not you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, because I was, I thought it was him the first time, and then when he came back, then I started to think it was me. You know what I mean?
He's going to log off and log back on. Hopefully it works. If it doesn't, then we'll just go straight to Chris.
Yeah. How are you doing? Look, if Eric can't go,
yep.
Are you ready to fill in?
Not at all. I'm not good enough.
No, eh?
No.
How are you guys doing? You haven't been on the camera in a while. A lot of people want to know what's going on with you guys. How you guys doing?
We're doing excellent. Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing very good. I'm doing very good. I'm going to do better when Eric joins me here, but I'm doing very, very good.
Good.
I
don't think he's back on. Hold on. Let me check.
Check. Okay, you could go check. Okay, don't worry about it. Go check. Go do what you got to do. Thank you. There you have it. Agnello and Sammy. This is it. This is the beauty. Why don't I take this opportunity actually to see George Costanza. It's not you, it's me technique. All right. I hear you, Tony, says Darren. Thank you. Kelly says sick. Kelly's been there for about a month now, and she's there all the time. She doesn't miss any appointments. Thank you, Kelly. We hear you, Tony. It's Eric, says Lizard King. Thank you. I hear Tony, not Eric, says Patrick. Thank you. Open your mic. Eric, says Simon. Can't hear Eric, says Daniel Olivier. And Roger Delaney says very sick. Mark Fidanza, Tony, you sound great, and so is your hair. Even my hair, by the way, I cut it myself, And you can probably tell this is not the work of a professional. I just woke up and I decided to cut the sides. I kept the front a little longer, and my wife says that I basically destroyed it, And it's funny because I have all the time in the world now during my days to actually, go see a barber and stuff like that. I have a lot of people who like cutting my hair, but for whatever reason, I just pretend that I'm a barber every now and then. The sides are shaved very nice, says Kelly. Well, it's just it's a trimmer. You know what I mean? Can you give me a haircut, Tony, says Kirby. No, I don't cut hair. Love the podcast, Tony. It's sick. Thank you very much. Sick is malad. Angela Esposito says, I hear you, Tony. Been to Montreal twice for games. I'm from New Brunswick. Go to Rubens if you have it. This coming in from Islo. Thank you. Looks like Fred Flintstone's hair, says Patrick Malvena, who obviously And Chris Bergeron says that's a toupee. We're talking about two people who probably want to get blocked. They're not going to be the first, and they won't be the last. You're the man, says Tony, says Lotus, man, you are not getting blocked. That I can guarantee you. All right. Okay. Eric, we're still working on getting Eric, but it looks like Chris Latournade. Why don't we go to Chris Latournade and go to Eric a little bit later? Why don't we do that? I think we should just do that at this point.
6 sports cards. Presented by Sports La Tournade.
All right, so Eric was set to join me and Chris was set to join me. Chris is absolutely unbelievable because he was set to join me at around 10:30 or 10:40 or so. And look at that, he goes half an hour early. 6 sports cards presented by Sport La Tournade, sports cards, collectibles, and more. Visit the store at 1 Avenue de la Fabrique in Vaudreuil-Dorion. So once again, Saturday is a pretty special day at Sports La Tournade, right?
Yeah, it's kind of exciting. We're going to have some, hopefully we'll have some people here to trade cards with. And we will meet and greet with you, hopefully.
Yes,
and,
I'll be there for sure. Chris, I'll be there for sure. I gave you my word that I would be there. I'm at a fundraiser. Actually, I've had a very busy week. I went down to meet some great people in Cowansville on Saturday to bring awareness to what they're doing. They've basically set up several workshops in a huge warehouse of 15,000 square feet. And Plein Rayon, they're called. And they work with, kids, young adults, and young people who have problems with motor skills, whether it's being autistic, whether it's suffering from dyspraxia, some of them with Down syndrome. So I was there last week on Saturday morning. This Friday night, I'm going to Laval at the request of Gianni Romanelli. I think I'm going to drop the puck for the ceremonial puck drop in Laval for a hockey game. I'm going there on Friday night. On Saturday morning, I'm going to be playing in a fundraiser. It's going to be ball hockey, playing with Les Enfants de Dr. Julien. That's going to take place downtown Montreal next to the Hochelaga Maisonneuve area. It'll probably bring me to around noon. At noon, I'm going to leave there. I'll get in my truck and I'll make my way to Vaudreuil-Dorion. And I think I should arrive there by 1 o'clock in the afternoon at the very latest. And I'll spend a good 3-4 hours with you. And I'm hoping that you're going to have a TV on the World Cup.
Oh, yes, we will.
Because England's going to be playing France at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, correct?
That's correct. And we will have it on.
You mean a lot to me because it takes a lot to get me out of my house when there's a very important soccer game going on. You can imagine a World Cup game, a quarterfinal game between England and France. So I might be a little bit distracted. I will say hi to everyone, but I'm going to always have one eye on the tube, okay? I want to let you know. So,
perfect.
I hope I'm not going to be impolite by doing so, but I'd rather give everyone the heads up. I'll have one eye on the tube, okay?
That's perfect. We're thrilled to have you, and hopefully we see some of the faces of all the pillows we've sold since.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty cool, yeah. I'm going to be happy to be there, and, if by any chance you had a pizza or two, that goes a long way with me. All right, okay, all kidding aside. Why don't we talk sports cards for now? Who's hot?
So so tonight's topic was going to be who's hot, who's not, and how to evaluate a card and what makes a card valuable. So
if I can, I'm going to go with a player that I want to throw at you, an athlete that you probably don't expect because I usually don't go baseball. But after hearing Aaron Judge signing 9-year deal, $360 million with the Yankees, I would imagine after hitting like 1,000 home runs last season the way he did, and I'm making up that number, by the way, that his card is already very valuable. But when a player signs earlier in the day, the value of that card skyrocket or not?
So because of what he's done this year and because he's staying a Yankee, so it's not going to skyrocket. The fact that he is staying a Yankee is a good thing, because one of the things I did want to talk about is the one of the big things in value of a card is the hometown market.
Who they play for.
Exactly. And the New York Yankees, we all know, they're not everyone's cup of tea, but they are a team that they're followed very much so in the MLB. And playing with the New York Yankees versus the Arizona Diamondbacks or something like that, definitely that card will hold more value or even go up today with that signing announcement.
What's the story with Ovechkin's card? As he's like 100 goals away or whatever it is from Wayne Gretzky's 894 mark. Yep. I mean, I would imagine that card was already valuable, but what happens to that card if he beats 894?
It doubles. That
it
card
doubles.
already. Oh, the card already. So the wave already hit. So the wave hit last year when everyone started talking about the record. The card doubled then. The wave has hit, and now it's whether he hits it or not. Everyone's thinking yes, he will. So that will also bring it to a whole other level. So now people are just they rode the wave. They bought the card. They're sitting on it, waiting for that record now. So
wow, it doubles, man. So someone who's got that card right now is watching every Capitals game and praying to God that he scores every game that he plays here and beats
absolutely.
that record.
Yeah, absolutely.
With the World Cup going on, Kylian Mbappe,
yes,
right? He's right now as we speak. He has the most goals in France's Ligue 1. He has most goals this season in UEFA Champions League, and he's got most goals at the World Cup. If he ends up being the leading goal scorer of the World Cup and France win the World Cup, what happens to his card? And by the way, would you know off the top of your head what his card is worth?
So there's different variations of the card. If you can buy a cheap set, the card is probably the most expensive card in that set, but you can still get it at a fair price. If you go to a
what's fair if I can, like I want to buy this guy's card. I mean, will I be able to pay it with the money that I have in my in my pocket, or do I got to go to the Interact machine first?
You are going to be able to buy a cheaper version of an Mbappe card with the money you have in your pocket.
Is it going to be worth anything?
Yeah, absolutely. There's different standards, right? There's different values. There's a market out there for everybody. There's different products, and if you want to buy, say, like the Prism, which is the highest level you can buy in the soccer cards, then you're going to look at something. You might want to go to the Interact machine or even get out your credit card.
Excuse my ignorance. Prism, what is that? What is that?
Prism Soccer is Prism is made by Panini. It's basically a set within Panini.
Oh, okay, I got it.
Yeah, so Panini makes the soccer cards. They also make the football cards. So Panini Prism is also big in football and basketball.
Would considering football is more a sport in Europe, we're talking soccer, than it would be here. Like if I would have one of those cards and I would sell it in Europe, would I get more money for that card in Europe than if I would take that card and sell it here? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Just like selling a Cole Caulfield here.
Okay, got it.
A Cole Caulfield card, if Cole Caulfield played for the Arizona Coyotes, his card would only be worth about half of what it is because he plays in Montreal, where this is a city of hockey. People love hockey in Canada, and he's playing for a huge hockey market. So it really depends on where you play and also where you're from. Like you said, soccer's bigger in Europe, so anytime in Europe, that's going to be worth more.
How about a player who in a short tournament just explodes? Like how much can his card go up? I'm thinking of, Gonzalo Ramos, for example, who was the 21-year-old striker who started the game yesterday in favor of Cristiano Ronaldo, right? He plays one game, boom, he scores 3 goals, okay? I believe Mbappe's got 5 at the World Cup. What if this guy explodes over the next couple of games? Portugal wins the World Cup, and he's the leading scorer. Like, can his card go from nothing to a lot, or it'll just go up a bit?
No, his card will go from nothing to a lot. It will kind of plateau after the World Cup is done, but then it'll be what's next for that guy. Will it keep going up or will it not? That's the question that people need to study. That's what people that really know soccer and really know the game are going to be able to tell us. So a lot like the stock market, right?
Yeah.
So if you wanted to get into, I have my hot and cold list right now over the last couple of weeks. It's the same thing. there's guys that have gotten their card has doubled, or it's gone up like, let's say 75%.
Yeah.
But then again, should we be buyers or should we be sellers at this point? That's the big question.
Well, listen, if you have any soccer questions, by all means, I'm not going to tell you that I know more about soccer than anyone else, but nobody knows as much as me. Maybe Guardiola, maybe Mourinho, maybe Klopp. All right.
Okay.
All kidding aside, hey, look, there's a very, very good question from a member of our Sick Army community. Okay.
Yeah.
And this coming in from Sonny Hendricks. If Ovechkin indeed does break Gretzky's goal scoring record of 894, and you said that his card, I believe you said his card would likely double.
Yes.
Does that mean that Gretzky's rookie card at that point, or any other Gretzky card, will go down 50%?
I don't think so, because Gretzky has so many records. He's got Stanley Cups. He's got all the hardware to go with that. So Gretzky's card is always been a classic. It's there. The prices have not fluctuated that much. They did go up during COVID because everything did, but it's not going to affect what Crosby's done. Nothing can be taken away from that guy. Just like the great football players, the great soccer players, the great one of the big things for a value in a card is Stanley Cups, records, current point streaks, anything that has it with that guy at the moment. So just today, Kirill Kaprizov just broke a record tonight. He broke the record in Minnesota for the longest point streak, goal and point streak for the Minnesota Wild. It's a small record, but it's still something to build on, and it's still going to make people tomorrow morning wake up and say, maybe I should get myself a Kaprizov. This guy might do something more.
All right. Okay. So, you talked about Kaprizov just now, and you talked about value in the cards. So we understand that if a player breaks records, his card's going to become more valuable. Are there other examples of a card becoming more valuable? Is it just breaking records? Is it just performance-based, or is there anything else that can influence a card going up in value?
Absolutely. So I'm going to give you a perfect example, and it's not an example that I necessarily agree on. Yeah. But because I collect a lot of Tiger Woods, I follow the trends on Tiger Woods, and I know a lot about Tiger Woods.
Yeah.
His card, when he actually had a severe accident where he nearly died, the next week after that accident, his card more than doubled. More than doubled. And that's, he didn't beat any records. He had a bad accident. People were, feeling for him, and it was a terrible, terrible thing, but that actually drove his card up. People were thinking the worst, and they were actually jumping on board like, oh, we need to get some Tiger Woods stuff. And that actually put his card up. So sometimes it's not always your fortune, it's your misfortune also. So that's something that can happen.
Chris, everyone obviously watching really appreciates your contributions, and they want to encourage your store and support local and support someone like you. But I'll ask the question anyway. Like Tony says, where's the best place to sell your cards? I would say Sport La Tornade. But my question is there like a kind of like a flagship store somewhere in the world where everyone, that would be the place? Like, let's just say they're not in Montreal, right? Is there a store like in Los Angeles or in Miami or in New York that is the hottest place to actually sell a card? Or is it done on, is eBay a hot place to sell a card?
So the hottest place, it's a personal opinion. I don't think there is a hottest place. There is some very cool places in the United States that you can go visit. And I'm sure, I haven't done the tour of Europe, but I'm sure there's some really cool places to stop in. And also here in Canada, we have some amazing shops, stores everywhere. But it's everyone's different cup of tea. Every store has more hockey. The other store has more baseball. The other store sells more memorabilia stuff. It's all depending on I tend to think that a local card store is your best bet. Buying and selling on eBay is great. It's a great tool to have. Everybody uses it. Now, when you buy a card on eBay now, you're gonna be paying taxes. You're gonna, if you're selling on eBay, you're gonna be charged fees.
Yeah.
So these are all things that can get in the way of your sale or your purchase, and there sometimes the value of the card gets away from you. Where like, okay, this card was worth $20. I bought it, but now I paid $32 because fees and taxes and everything. So that's just an example of eBay. But the good thing about eBay is you can find anything and everything. And it's just a click away versus getting outside and going to your local card store.
Eric Engels is going to join us in 2 or 3 minutes. Before he does, we're just going to take 3 questions with you, Chris. Yep. And so let's go. Agnello and Sammy, bring up the questions. Ernie Lapori, are you talking about graded cards versus raw cards? There's a huge difference if graded. Absolutely.
So the raw cards and the graded cards are a huge difference in price. So one thing I was going to mention also is that, let's take, for example, Kirill Kaprizov. He broke a little bit of a record today. He's a card that you would buy, get graded, and it would up the value. So Kirill Kaprizov is having himself a pretty good season. His point totals are there. He's going up, but I'm seeing on the market his card graded PSA 10. Okay, I have an example of a Makar here. So here's the Makar PSA 10. The Kaprizov right now is actually trending down. And the reason it's trending down is because the pop report. On the back of every card, you see this barcode that you have on the back of every card. So if I scan that, it's going to give me a population report. And it's going to tell me how many PSA 10 Kaprizovs there is.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And that will determine
now cards from yesterday didn't have this. I mean, this just came out when exactly?
Well, this has been out for a while with PSA. Now we're getting into even more technology with tag grading that I mentioned in a different show. That's a technology that's even coming and going even further than PSA. So that's to come. We'll talk more about tag later on. But for now, the pop report is very important when you talked about graded cards, because now the Kaprizov is now up to 2,600 in the pop report, which is getting high. So that is kind of affecting his market, and his card has gone down in the last few weeks.
Another question. Is buying a box of Tim Hortons 22-23 hockey cards worth it? This coming in from Bure.
So I don't want to discredit Tim Hortons and their products and what they do. I've collected Tim Hortons over the years. It's a fun set to do. It's a very difficult set to do. You have to buy a lot. My advice is to buy a bit when you start and then get into the trading. Tim Hortons is a very good set for trading in order to complete your set. But the problem that I see with the Tim Hortons cards is over time, they do not hold the value as much as your regular hobby boxes that you'll buy at your local card store. So I would stick with local card store hobby boxes more than a Tim Hortons.
Third and final question of the night. This coming in from Sandro Da Vinci. I have that shoebox. Mark Messier, Paul Coffey, Ray Bourque. Rookie cards are more they worth and more. Are they worth anything? I have no idea what to do.
That's the best thing to do, is to bring them to me, come show them, and I will have a look at them.
Sell them to me. I'll give you $20 cash.
There you go. You sell them to Tony, he'll bring them over and we'll have a look at them. Now, first off, we have to determine whether they are the real rookie cards. Like you had some that were, some were rookie, some weren't. Yeah. And then we have to we determine the what the condition of the cards are. And you know what? I would probably suggest getting a few of those graded if they were the rookie cards.
Oh, wow. Pretty cool. Hey, Chris, once again, I'm going to give out the address so people can come down and see us. On Saturday, you're going to be trading cards. You're going to be buying cards. We're hoping we can get the sick community there. And it all takes place at your store, 1 Avenue de la Fabrique in Vaudreuil-Dorion. So this is going to take place this Saturday between noon and 5 p.m., correct?
That is correct.
I'll be there. You got a TV with the game on, yes or no?
We have a TV with the game on, and we do have food and beverages.
Who's better than you? Nobody. I'll see you on Saturday, my man.
All right, thanks. Have a good night.
All right, there you have it. Thank you. There you have it, Chris from Sportlat Tornad. And now I've been told that Eric is ready to go, and we fixed the microphone issue and the sound issue. Look at him. There we go. I'm hearing a little bit of echo, though. I think you got...
No. Really?
Yeah.
Do you hear me well?
I do, but
I don't hear an echo with you.
No?
No.
Okay. All right, then don't worry about it. What can I
Just a
tell
couple old guys having audio issues here.
Yeah. Don't
We're
worry.
revealing our age.
Yeah, don't. Yeah, it's no big deal. Listen, there's an echo, but I mean, it's not the end of the world. What can I tell you?
I'm turning the gain down on the microphone. Does that work?
I still hear an echo, I think.
Maybe it's in your head, Tony.
I don't think so, because I just had Chris on and I didn't hear her with Chris. Then you came on and I heard her with you. Listen, it doesn't matter. All right. It's no big deal. It's like the end of the world. It's pas fin du monde. You know what I mean? All right. Hey, what did you make out of, Shane Wright versus Juraj Slafkovsky last night?
I thought it was an interesting game in that the Canadiens scored on half their shots and pretty much ended it right there. It wasn't like we were going to have a repeat of what happened Monday in Vancouver. That was wild being at that game. That was a great and fun game to watch, Tony, and not a very fun one to write about on an Eastern time zone deadline. So
they didn't score on half their shots. Didn't they score on 4 to 16? That would be 25% of their shots.
They scored on the first 4 of 8.
Oh, the first 4 of it. Okay, yeah. I got you. All right. I was just.
And then inevitably the percentages dropped. Yes, they got a few. They were trending towards like their lowest shot total in years in Seattle, and Martin Jones, I would suggest, was not like the best I've ever seen him play.
He wasn't. I mean, Caulfield's first goal, albeit a nice setup and a nice shot, it hits off of him before it goes in. I think he should have had that one. Suzuki's shot looks like it goes off his glove or through his glove. I think he should have had that one.
Was that last night or Vancouver? I can't remember now.
Oh, that was Vancouver. You're right. Yeah, what am I thinking about exactly?
Were you just on the West Coast?
Yeah,
that was
Speaking of which, they picked up 5 out of 8 points on this trip, right? The win in Calgary, the loss in Edmonton, the overtime loss versus Vancouver, and the win last night versus Seattle. What was I thinking about exactly? But I was thinking about Vancouver.
Suzuki scored in the Vancouver game and shot right through that glove. And I turned to our buddy Arpin Basu in the press box. I said, and eventually he's not going to keep scoring on every shot he takes. But it's quite remarkable what's going on with that player, and it was quite a road trip through Calgary and Edmonton, which were minus 30.
Yeah,
all 4 days that we were there. That was horrible. Nothing prepares you for that.
Yeah,
I lived on this planet for 39 years, all of them in Montreal, and when that shit comes, it's unbearable.
Yeah. I have real good news for you, by the way, because it looks like the echo is gone based on it looks like it's gone, and based on some of the comments.
Perfect.
What else is remarkable is the second Shane Wright scored that goal last night, the amount of people that took to social media to say that the Montreal Canadiens absolutely blew it, because it's funny, right? Because prior to the game, oh yeah, well, listen,
I didn't see any of that.
Well, just go on Twitter and do a search of Shane Wright's name or a search of Slafkovsky's name. The amount of tweets you're going to read is going to be, you're going to freak out. But before the game last night, Shane Wright had played 7 games at the National Hockey League level. He had 1 assist. That's it. He scores a goal, and all of a sudden, everyone's like, the Montreal Canadiens blew it. Everyone's weighing in. So, Shane Wright has more potential, yada, yada, yada. I don't know who's got more potential. I will say this, and I think this can make for a real good discussion here between you and I. I really like what the Kraken are doing with Wright. His confidence was down You're going to the American Hockey League. They made him play 5 games. He scored 4 goals. His confidence came back up. I think one of the reasons why they wanted him in the lineup last night as well, it could have probably negatively affected his confidence if the Canadiens and Juraj Slafkovsky are in town. He's not in that game. He plays. They're going to send him to the World Juniors. And here's where I think we can have an interesting debate. I don't think a stint in the minors at some point for Slafkovsky, and I don't think Slafkovsky going to the World Juniors would hurt his development. Only time will tell, but I believe it would help him. Your thoughts?
I don't think anything like that would ever hurt somebody's development. It's never been my opinion. Anytime you get to go to an international tournament and have that type of experience where you're the guy, I don't think it would hurt his development. Whether or not it would actually help his development in terms of being able to play at the speed at the NHL level and find the strength to do it for more minutes than he's been getting in Montreal is subjective. It's questionable. You say you really like what Seattle's doing with Shane Wright. I'm sure you didn't love it when they were playing him 6 minutes a game.
No.
And scratching him multiple times.
No.
In a row.
No, I didn't.
That wasn't necessarily good for his development. I actually really like the way Montreal has brought Slafkovsky along. I do believe there will come a point where he'll spend some games in the American Hockey League. But I don't know if that's urgent or anything like that.
You think you should watch some from the press box, Eric?
No. First of all, no, I think if anything, if you're gonna pull him out of the lineup, put him down in the American Hockey League. Let him play games. Let him play a few more games. Let him work.
Sometimes they say you learn when you watch, right? Sometimes he's been rocked 3 or 4 times where it was either he was a little bit naive and he didn't expect to be hit, either he watched his pass after he made it, either his head was down.
I don't think that was a penalty the other night, by the way.
No, those are things that happen with young players, by the way. It happened with Galchenyuk. It happened with Kotkaniemi. It usually happens with young players who maybe are not 100% ready or maybe skipped a step or two. I want to protect him a little bit more. I know he's a big boy. I know he hasn't suffered a documented concussion yet since he's been here. I'm trying to avoid that he does, I'm trying to protect him a little bit.
2 things. You learn from it from taking a couple of those hits. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. And a guy like Juraj Slafkovsky, who's 6'4", 238 pounds, has been a monster everywhere he's played and on bigger ice. He hasn't had to pay as close attention in the other leagues as he has in the NHL, where he's got to learn that he can't admire a pass and then all of a sudden he gets drilled, right? You don't want to see this happen over and over again. You said 3 or 4 times. I've counted 3 times and 2 of them really, one of them, man, I can't remember which game it is now that he got hit in the head and he was pissed off about it. And he said afterwards, it was still a hit to the head, but maybe I was out of position or I leaned forward. You remember which game it was?
It's not the game in Minnesota where he was by the boards? Where he got hit by Marco Rossi? Is that the one you're talking about?
Not that hit. No, there was a hit where he got hit recently before this last one.
Okay.
And I'm annoyed that it's kind of escaping my mind right now, but
I'm just going to take a look at the schedule here, and if I take a look at the games, it'll probably.
Yeah, this was a play that anybody could have been the victim of because the defenseman snuck around another guy who was playing.
Oh, it was the game in Chicago, the 3-2 game on Thanksgiving Friday. There was it that one?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
He got hit not by the guy who was playing him defensively, but a guy who snuck around the other defenseman and ended up kind of in his blind spot. Now, the way he's going to learn from it is going through it, just like any other experience he's having at the NHL level. And look, I know coaches say you can learn some. Marty St. Louis likes to say you can learn something watching from the press box, and I'm sure some guys do.
Yeah.
But, we're up on press row, and I'm not saying that guys are doing this all throughout the game, but they're checking their phone, they're exchanging messages with their girlfriends or whatever it is. This is not like some vast learning experience where they're all of a sudden enlightened about the way the game works from a different perspective. He sat some out during the preseason and got to watch at that time, and I'm sure picked up a few things. But Slafkovsky has to experience some of this stuff. You don't want to see him getting blown up from game to game. Now it's something he's definitely going to be that much more aware of after getting hit by Luke Shen the way he did.
Mm-hmm.
And look, there will come a point here where if they want him to work on something specific and want to give him more ice time and want to give him more feel with the puck and want to give him an opportunity like Shane Wright had to score 4 goals in 5 games in the American Hockey League, they'll do that. Is it urgent? Is it pressing? Is Slafkovsky merely surviving his shifts in the NHL? I don't think so. I think they're doing a good job sheltering him. I think they played him with some good veteran players. I think they took their time moving him up so that he doesn't end up in a situation where if he's not producing night after night, people are pulling out their hair or tweeting like you said, oh, they should have taken Shane Wright. I'll say this about Slafkovsky. Talking with one of the scouts that I respect the most, who I'll save his name because all the scouts, none of them are allowed to talk and all of them like to talk, so we have to keep them anonymous.
Yeah, that's kind of true. Well, they're kind of like they're kind of like lost in the shuffle there, so they like to have a discussion every now and then. I enjoy talking with them.
They're not in the spotlight, and they're the sharpest minds in the game, and they're the most informed people who are in the ranks and getting to know these players better than anybody could possibly do with a computer. And when one of them comes out to me that I truly respect and randomly, not because I said, hey, what do you think about Slafkovsky, turns to me in Vancouver and says, this kid is going to be a stud. And I said, really? Like what? Like what makes it? He said, just wait until he grows into that body and has the strength that goes with that size. You could see the fine skills are there. The speed is there. And from all he's heard, the character is there. From what we've seen, the character is there. Yeah. We'll find out in 5 years if it's him or Shane Wright or, Logan Cooley or somebody else within this draft that's the best player coming out of it. But the Canadiens have a pretty good sense of who this kid is going to be. A scout from another organization, at least one of them, feels he's going to be a really good player. My opinion is he's going to be a really good player, but they're going to have to continue to handle him in the best possible way. And at one point, that might include playing a string of games in the American Hockey League. As far as the World Juniors are concerned, though, Tony, I don't know how much better he gets as an NHL player. The one thing
it would be nice to see if he can go there and dominate.
Yeah, like he dominated the Olympics and the World Championships, right? And he did. The one thing I would say that could be of value to him doing that is that after both those experiences, or at least after the Olympic experience, it was a springboard for him in the Finnish league. He started playing a lot better after that. But I don't know if he becomes that much better as an NHL player by going down to do that at this point.
Yeah, no, I hear you. We'll see. Hey, after Shane Wright scored that goal yesterday, Slafkovsky came alive a little bit in that game yesterday. You can tell. I mean, you always want to score, but he looked like he was a little bit of a man on a mission. And by the way, as much as Shane Wright had a great first period and he could have scored a goal before he actually scored a goal, so he could have finished the night with 2.
And after.
We should also say, though, that he loses Dvorak on the goal that the Canadiens end up scoring, with Slafkovsky getting an assist on the goal. He misses an assignment there, so it wasn't all perfect for him. Hey, a shout out to Ericsson Audio, the Sick Podcast with me, Marinaro. Tascam equipment is supplied by Ericsson Audio, the choice of musicians, engineers, and broadcast professionals. I want to get back to that game versus Vancouver if I can, because they blew a 4-0 lead. They lose by a score of 7-6. It's enough to drive a coach crazy. Marty St. Louis was very calm. He kind of raised the volume a little bit when he called the timeout, but he was very calm after the loss. He was very calm the next day. And he was asked about it and said, hey, Marty, you're pretty calm. And he said, oh, because the win isn't everything here. It's just, this is a learning moment and we're going to learn from it. And I thought they managed the game really well yesterday. I mean, Seattle had more shots and a lot of scoring chances, or more scoring chances. They didn't have a ton, though. The Canadiens, I thought, managed the game well. For a team that was playing 3 games in 4 nights, I thought they learned from that loss versus Vancouver. And that's what Marty St. Louis wants. And that's what they did.
Yeah, when you say manage the game well, I think particularly in the third period, pucks in, pucks out, no turning the pucks over at both blue lines, the type of stuff that you need to do in order to win hockey games. And the night before, Marty St. Louis was talking about loving the style the Canadiens were playing, but teaching them how to win being a separate kind of category. So much focus on the style of play and creating offense and doing stuff like that. And maybe a little bit less of it that in the final minute of a period or in the final few seconds of a shift, how to manage the play and manage it. Like that stuff comes with time and experience and making the type of mistakes that the Canadiens made in that game against Vancouver. What I love is that the coach, sets that tone, not only after the game, but during it. Like the timeout on TV, it looked like he got animated. But when I asked Jordan Harris, like, did he lose it? Like, he said, no, they're not about screaming and yelling. He talked about us having a certain level of focus on what was happening on the other side, not letting players get behind us. But they come out of that timeout and score 2 quick goals. Like the team responds so well to this guy. And I think if he plays it a different way, I think if he goes ape in that timeout, if he goes off after the game, which he had full reason to after the game, how do they come out in Seattle? Are they rattled? Are they devastated by the night before and let down and start off unfocused? Like they are taking what he gives them. And I think as the leader of the team and as the coach, you have to set that example. And I think we've seen it throughout sports, and specifically hockey, which is such a hot-tempered sport, that if your coach is going nuts all the time on the bench, it has an effect on how you comport yourself as a player and how the certain players are on edge or whatever it is. He's always calm. He's always collected. And I think people are looking at it like, oh, the pressure's off in Montreal. And when there starts to be pressure for them to win games, we might see a different person. We're talking about the development of a coach too at the same time here. We know who he was as a player. My favorite thing that Marty said after the Vancouver loss was the game gets from 4-0 to 5-4. And all I said to the guys was, there's nothing we can do about that. That's already happened. Like it's already done. It's what we're going to do next. So I just think.
And they scored 2 goals and take a lead.
Yeah. And I just think that mentality carried forward to Seattle, right? Like any team we've seen in the past blow a game the way Montreal did the night before, not 2 nights before, the night before.
Yeah.
Like they're coming into the next game apprehensive. And there's going to be problems. Like, and that didn't happen in Seattle. Like they let up a few scoring chances, but capitalized on their own and managed the game, like you said, and were focused completely in that third period to ensure that the type of stuff that happened the night before didn't happen. And go back a few weeks before that, or a couple weeks before, when they had that horrible game against Buffalo.
Yeah.
And they're playing the next night and they come out and win, right? Like this coach is doing things the right way. I mean, there's so many examples every night. And it was hard not to look at that one in Vancouver and be like, okay, that's different.
Sean Monahan out with an injury. He's had a boot around that foot for a while now.
Yeah.
I know that for the most part, we've said that we fully expect the Canadiens to trade Sean Monahan before the deadline because they can get a real good piece for him, you would think, because he's the kind of team that any team trying to make a push in the playoffs would like to have. He's a leader. When they went back to Calgary, you heard some of his former teammates, former coaches talk about how much admiration they have for the guy and stuff like that. But considering he is such a great teammate, and considering that it looks like he's playing with a smile on his face in Montreal, and considering that when he was in the lineup, he, Slafkovsky, and Anderson looked pretty good together, you think Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon may have changed their mind on whether or not they deal Monahan?
No. And this is like a persistent conversation, and it'll continue to happen from here to the trade deadline.
Yeah.
The Canadiens are going to get a good offer for Sean Monahan. I think you and I have talked about this, but they're not, unless he continues to play the same way he has and plays even better for that matter, the idea that he'll necessarily as a rental and a probable third line center on any other team fetch a 2023 first round pick, it might be hard to do because it's really going to depend on what else is in the market and what the market is paying, because I think a lot of teams are going to hold on to that asset as a real premium one. And they're going to hope that nobody else breaks the code, so to speak. And then all of a sudden that becomes the currency to get that type of player.
Yeah.
That said, would the Canadiens be able to get a really good prospect who was a first round pick for that player? Would they be able to get a 2024 or 2025 first round pick in exchange for Sean Monahan? If that type of asset comes back, they have to trade the player. And if in the dream scenario, which it rarely works out this way, that he loved Montreal so much that he'd like to re-sign as a free agent, then great. I want to lay out one scenario by which the Canadiens will keep Sean Monahan, and this is excluding the one where nobody offers the type of value that would have them wanting to trade him. If he gets hurt, and if he's unable to play beyond the trade deadline, and for whatever reason his game takes a dip because he's playing hurt and he's too hurt, then the Canadiens will consider hanging on to him and signing him, and hoping that he heals up and continues to be of value to them in a short-term kind of situation. But barring that, the market will generate something that they'll want to take.
For sure. I mean, if I was,
they will trade him, so nothing will change.
Yeah, if I was a team making the playoffs, I would take Sean Monahan on my team to help me for the run. Jay Fed says, relax with the tanking BS. Montreal will finish where they finish. Let them play. Enjoy the season. Jay, I'm not so sure we understand each other. When I talk about tanking, I never talk about players tanking. Players don't tank. They play every game to win it. I don't talk about coaches tanking. Coaches coach every game to win it. But if you make the team weaker by actually trading away some elements and replacing them by players who are inferior, or not replacing them, or just getting prospects or picks in return, the way the Canadiens did a year ago, once they traded Kulak, once they traded Lehkonen, once they traded Sherratt, and once they traded Toffoli, obviously they were a weaker team and they had less of a chance of winning games. That's how you can tank organically, okay? So, Montreal will finish. We'll let them play. I'm not telling the players not to play, all right? When I talk about tanking, I talk about it happening organically, where, a Gordon and Hughes would decide that they're going to trade Jake Allen. And Jake Allen, and replace him by an inferior goaltender. Jake Allen helps you get points. He helped you get points last night in Seattle, and he helped you get points last week in Calgary, for example. All right? So now we understand each other. We got that out of the way. Hey, Rem the Gem finally played the way he did a year ago, right? Was that Pitlick's best game as a Hab this season?
I mean, is that the natural conclusion to draw just because he finally scored?
Nice goal.
It was a nice goal. And what I like most about it is that he drove the middle of the ice and then flashed himself open.
But what I like most about it was the pass came from Edmondson.
Yeah, and look, Edmondson makes good plays like that. He threw a 3-zone pass like the other night. That was unbelievable. Edmondson takes a lot of grief sometimes. I think, you got to cut him a bit of slack. He jumping onto a moving train with a back injury and having to catch up, and being thrust into a situation where he's got to take pressure off a lot of the younger players who've been playing a bit over their heads since the beginning of the season. It's tough. And like naturally every night that he steps into the lineup, he's being paired with somebody who's playing on their offside. Like, let's chill a bit. I think Edmondson is a really solid contributor, but beyond what I think about him, he's got one more year at $3.5 million. And we're talking about what Monahan might fetch on the open market. And I'm telling you right now, being through Western Canada and just talking to some people out there, like, I think it's already out there. Everyone's talking about it. But like, if the Edmonton Oilers could get their hands on a player like that, which, they haven't had that type of player since Larson went to Seattle, a guy who's physical and gets in your grill and is going to make you pay and has a playoff ability to him. Yeah. That's, and we know Ken Holland also specifically is like not typically interested in giving up premium assets for rentals. The fact that Edmonton has one more year will prove quite attractive. Edmonton won't be the only team, and they'd have to get Montreal to take back a contract to take that player. But like, you could be looking at it a good prospect coming back for a player like that. I think Edmonton's name is going to get out more and more as we go forward.
And we're hearing that Ken Holland and Kent Hughes went for a bite to eat as well. Sonny Hendricks says, we got a prospect for Lehkonen, not a pick. Not true, Sonny. You got a prospect and a pick, because for Arturi Lehkonen, the Canadiens got Justin Barron and a second-round pick in 2024. So they were able to get two pieces for Arturi Lehkonen. All right.
Good deal, there we go. Good deal for sure.
Yeah, good deal for
both. And Lehkonen
teams.
needed Lehkonen was a RFA needing a contract. So and close to UFA. So like that was and it was a bank breaking contract that he ended up that he absolutely earned. So but like, and I don't know if Ken Holland and Kent Hughes actually went out for dinner, because I think when I saw them at the Edmonton game, it was the first time they were chatting. But but I don't know that they were doing anything other than exchanging pleasantries when I saw them together. But look, we were originally talking about Rem Pitlick, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where this whole came up. We went off on a tangent on Edmonton here, but I like that Pitlick made a direct play to score a goal. I find that since the beginning of the season, he's been willing to rely a little too much on his skill and play a bit too much on the perimeter. He is the type of player that is going to excel playing with better players, with more offensively skilled players, so that he can make those types of plays and have them, translate into points.
Yeah.
But when he's playing on the line he's playing on with Jake Evans and Rem Pitlick, and not taking anything away from, with Jake Evans and Michael Pezzetta.
Yeah.
Not taking anything away from Evans, who I think has been playing really good hockey, even if he hasn't scored a goal. You got to play a more direct, straightforward game. And I think doing what he did last night, the way he scored that goal, not so much that he scored it, that will help him stay in the lineup when bodies start to get healthy.
It'd be nice to see them get going, because that fourth line is like not the fourth line that we saw a year ago, and not the fourth line that we saw 2 years ago.
I thought Pezzetta played his best game against Seattle. I thought he was really good.
Yes, Pezzetta did play his best game versus Seattle. I would agree with that. And once again, Pitlick scored a nice goal. So let's see what can happen, because that fourth line doesn't have much of an identity up until last night. And let's hope for the best. Hey, what do you make of Logan Mailloux not going to the World Juniors?
Not much. I mean, the kid played 12 games of hockey over the last 3 years before this season, and I know he's gotten off to a good start and scored a lot of goals.
His team is so much better when he plays, though, because you take a look at London's record when he's out of the lineup and when he's in the lineup, and that goal that we saw last night, holy jumping, man. That was, he just went around the guys like they weren't even there.
He's good. Canada's, loaded with really good premium defensemen. I don't know. I can't speak to the situation and suggest with any authority that what's happened with him off the ice is keeping him off of Hockey Canada's radar, given what's happened with Hockey Canada over the last year. It wouldn't surprise me if it was a factor.
Yeah, it would not.
But sometimes, and I don't know how Canadiens fans feel about this or if they think about it, but sometimes when a player gets snubbed in that situation, or they're not even invited to a camp when they feel they absolutely deserve to be there, it's a good thing. It's a good thing for the player. It brings out something even better in the player. And we'll see how he finishes up what's looking like a pretty promising season. The people I speak to say he's got different elements of his game to work on. Offensively, he's there. Physically there. He's got an NHL shot, and probably a really good one.
Yeah.
That there's no question of. And he's got instincts, but he hasn't played a lot of hockey in the last couple of years. And this is a good year in terms of development for him. And I hope he's developing as a human being too, so that when he does get an opportunity in Montreal, he makes the most of it and is able to proudly say, hey, I went through something and did something, and I learned from it, and it's helped me become a better person. And that experiences like this, where he's left off a camp roster for Hockey Canada, let alone the team, motivate him that much more to prove to everybody he's going to be a real good player.
Mailloux, Suzuki, Caulfield, Slafkovsky, Wright. These are among some of the names that we brought up so far tonight on the Sick Podcast. Obviously, really good young prospects, really good young players. And it's funny when we talk about young players and the draft. I just want to say I bumped into Blair Mackesy today. I was at an establishment in NDG.
One of my favorites.
Having a sub, a pretty famous place, you can imagine. And Blair was there having a bite himself. And it was real cool to bump into Blair, who, of course, did some scouting for the Minnesota Wild. Worked with the Toronto Maple Leafs, long time worked with Hockey Canada, and interviewed for the vacant Habs GM job back in 2012, right? It was nice to see Blair, who is enjoying retirement, and he turns 67, I believe, next week, and he is in tip-top form, tip-top shape. I love Blair Mackesy. Blair Mackesy is one of the greatest gentlemen in the history of hockey.
He's one of the sharpest dudes that I've ever spoken to about hockey, and he's got an incredibly dry sense of humor. And
he does. Yeah, he's a funny guy.
He can take the shots as well as he gives them, and that's what hockey's filled with those types of people. It's no wonder Blair had a very long, successful career, and just one of the guys that I love picking his brain about players. I could say that now because he's no longer active. Back in the day, I never would have said I was talking to him about things, but I'd like to talk to Blair quite a bit, just to pick his brain about certain hockey players, what he sees and what he thinks. And one of the things that I love the most about him is that he really valued He was able to see the value beyond the numbers. He was never one of those people who would say, "Oh, I don't believe in the analytics and that's all bullshit." But he was one of those people who really trusted his own instincts and eyes and was able to judge a player based on what they actually are versus what the numbers suggest they should be. He was able to look at a player like Ben Sherratt, who the analytics community would suggest is one of the worst defensemen in the league, and say, I know exactly what this guy is and what he brings, and there's so much value in that when it comes time to try to win. And we saw that in the playoffs, right? We saw that in Ben Sherratt's time in Montreal, and I think it's the same thing with Edmonton, right? Like, you look at a player that a lot of people said before he came to Montreal, he can't move the puck. He's the next Carl Alzner. He's the next Ben Sherratt. He's the next, and look at the value that he provided.
And then again,
in Montreal, right?
And in other situations, the analytics department wasn't crazy about, or the analytics population wasn't crazy about Carl Alzner, and they were right. All right, or the analytics community,
different,
I should call them, not population.
Very different thing, right? Like,
the
analytics don't speak highly of Ben Sherratt right now. The analytics don't speak highly of Caden Gooley. What do we think of him?
We think he's great.
Yeah, he's great. He's great and trending towards being an unbelievable defenseman. And like, speaking to different scouts while I was in Western Canada who got to see him quite a bit before he came to Montreal, like, they were shaking their heads just going, wow. Like, one of them turned to me, and I wrote this in my column today, and said, I can't believe we were ever debating drafting this guy. Another team. Like, this is he's turning heads.
Remember the big scandal in the province of Quebec when he was drafted? A lot of people here, a lot of people, a certain sector of the media wanted to draft Hendrix Lapierre and made a big story out of it when the Canadiens didn't. I mean, and when Hendrix Lapierre scored his first goal with the Washington Capitals, you remember that one? It became a big scandal that he's scoring for Washington and the Canadiens had Caden Gooley. Nobody's upset that the Canadiens drafted Caden Gooley now.
No, and I got to tell you, like, there's not a day that goes by this season where I don't kind of shake my head and say, like, this kid is really 20. Like, I had a conversation with him in Edmonton where I said, you're in your home rink where you were with the Edmonton Oil Kings last year. You're about to play Connor McDavid. Like, how many times last year, being so close to this, did you think about this and dream about this scenario finally coming to life the way it's going to tonight? And he looked at me and said, not once. I didn't think about it once. I was focused on what I was doing. And that's exactly why he is who he is right now, right? Like, this is exactly, Marty St. Louis likes to say, I need everyday guys. Like, that's exactly who Caden Gooley is. He focuses on the day. He focuses on winning the day, winning the moment.
Yeah.
And that's why everything he does, he doesn't look in over his head.
Yeah.
And this seems to be a theme, not only for him, but the whole defense. And I think part of it is how they've been handled and how they've been allowed to play through their mistakes.
Yeah.
But man, like, none of them get rattled. Like, each of them are making mistakes that are magnified on a nightly basis, because when you play, that's why they say it's so hard to make it as a defenseman, because every mistake you make really could turn into a goal against, and that becomes a lot magnified, and it becomes hard to get your focus off of it. But I look at Kovacevic scoring, and I wrote this in my column today. Kovacevic scoring,
not a bad waiver pickup,
Oh man, him scoring last night was extra sweet for one reason. Not because he was 25 and it's 5 years after he was drafted and he finally gets to realize that for sure is great, and it's a dream come true. Okay,
pretty cool. Yeah.
But what's really sweet is he was in the box the night before watching Vancouver tie that game. Like, he made a mistake, tripped JT Miller, got baited in, and ended up tripping him at a pivotal moment of the game. 1:32 to go. 4-0 lead was blown. It's recaptured to the 6-5 lead, and he's in the box watching them score 7 seconds after he goes in there.
Yeah.
Like, how do you think he's feeling? And the fact that he bounces back the way he does the next night after Pettersson scores an overtime 13 seconds in, that he probably lost some sleep or whatever it is, but bounces back the way he did and scores his first goal. It speaks to the mental strength of the player, but it speaks to the way the coaching staff is nurturing these young players. And it speaks to how far ahead of the curve all four of them are for having gained the experience they had. They're lucky. They're fortunate. I'm sure, the Canadiens would have loved to have had Mike Matheson and Joel Edmondson from the start of the season. They didn't. They were forced to put these defensemen in situations that Kent Hughes was worried about putting them in.
Yeah.
And yet there's this theme because all of them are making mistakes on a nightly basis, but they're able to move on the next shift, the next game, whatever it is. That, to me, that's what I thought about when Jonathan Kovacevic scored that goal. I was thinking about how he was sitting in the box the night before, and it could have rocked him.
Hey, an ending. Did you see what Tage Thompson did tonight for the Buffalo Sabres?
Before we started talking, he had 6 points and 5 goals. Where did he end up?
Yeah. Well, 5 out of 9 goals. They win by a score of 9-4 in Columbus, and Tage Thompson scores 5 out of Buffalo's 9 goals. I mean, I'm thinking about it. I mean, McDavid was clearly unbelievable last night on Saturday night, but I think Tage Thompson's the best player not named Connor McDavid that I've seen play the Montreal Canadiens this year.
Pretty damn good trade when you go back in time now.
My God, what a trade!
For both teams. Like
the Ryan O'Reilly trade, the Ryan O'Reilly going to St. Louis, right? I mean, he won a Stanley Cup there. Yeah,
it's huge.
Yeah.
And for a while, it looked like it wasn't going to have a payoff. This kid.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to tell you.
Is he not the best performer that you've seen not named Connor McDavid this year against the Canadiens?
He's sick. How old is he? 24, 25?
He's less than 25, I think.
I'm going to check.
Yeah.
I hate guessing.
Yeah.
And it only takes 2 seconds now that we have this internet.
Yeah, he's 25. He's 25. He just turned 25 at the end of October.
When did he pop? Last year, right? Last year was really the first season where he really had it.
Yeah. Well, last year he almost scored 40 goals. He had 38 goals last year.
And the year before that, what was it?
It was a shortened season. He had 8 goals.
8 goals in a shortened season.
Yeah, in 38 games.
In 38 games, 8 goals.
Yeah.
Okay. So it took him to 24 to pop.
Yeah.
All right. Just remember that. Everybody's got to remember that watching Juraj Slafkovsky, because Montreal is not a market that allows you to get to 24 to pop if you played at 18 years old. Tage Thompson was in the league pretty early. Okay.
Yeah.
And he's a big boy who's got incredible hands, incredible scoring ability. He can one-time a puck as well as anybody in the league, and he can beat you with his hands in close, as we saw him do a week ago with one of the nicest goals I've seen in like 10 years.
Yeah.
And the only other guy scoring goals in a similar way would be Connor McDavid at a different speed, obviously. But just remember and just go through the history, because I could go back to Mike Modano, who's one of the greatest players we've ever seen, and it took him to 23, 24 years old to pop, and he was in the league early too. So just remember that watching a big guy like Juraj Slafkovsky and what he's able to do right now and what he'll be able to do,
or even Kirby Dach for that matter. You never know. I mean, Dach as well was drafted 3rd overall. He too is a big 6'4" centerman. He might pop by age 24 as well.
And would he be popping the way he is right now in Montreal if he had spent the first 3 years of his career here?
No,
because it's so hard. There's so little patience for the development of the players, and I just think the models that the Canadiens have created now.
Yeah,
and how they're bringing players along and what goes into that development, which, believe me, I'm working on it right now, but I will have a big story on this. Coming soon. But what goes into how they're planning development for players is, you can succeed without a plan, but you're giving yourself a much better chance when you have one. And the depth to which they're creating plans for their players and adjusting them on the fly, and the touch points that those players are getting, not just with Rob Ramage and Francis Bouillon, who are on the road visiting them, but how that whole process is working with analytics, with the coaching staff, and the harmony of the team here. It is a huge, huge difference.
That was the
Canadiens.
That was the biggest shortcoming in the old regime, was the way they handled player development. They still had Bouillon talking to some of the players, and they still had Ramage talking to some of the players. But
those guys did great. Guys did great work. They just weren't supported.
They weren't correct. They didn't have an Adam Nicholas. They didn't have the coach on board as well. They didn't have the coaching staff as well. They basically said it was the responsibility of the player to handle their own development, is for the most part the way they viewed it, I think. But anyway, interesting conversation. Eric, I know you're going to let us know when that article's out. You usually join us on Mondays. Obviously, the Canadiens were in Vancouver on Monday, and that's why we got you on tonight on Wednesday. The Canadiens will host the Los Angeles Kings on Saturday, Eric, and then they're going to host the Calgary Flames on Monday. They're off on Tuesday. So if we can't, because I know you're going to work on Monday, can we talk again on Tuesday right here on the Sick Podcast?
I think there's a good chance of it. I'll be missing that game against Calgary on Monday because I'm going to Florida to cover the NHL Board of Governors meetings. So if I am available on Tuesday, I will let you know, which I think there's a good chance of happening, and we'll talk. And I'll be in Florida, and I won't be with this microphone. So
yeah,
maybe we won't have the same audio
hanging
quality,
out in Florida, tough life, But
I'll be working. I'll be working the whole time.
You know what? There'll be some time for a little bit of leisure, a little bit of play.
A lot of travel this month. A lot of travel this month, Tony. It's
how long are you going to Florida for?
I'm going to go from Sunday till Wednesday morning.
You going to bring your golf clubs? Tell me the truth.
No time. I got to work on that piece that I just mentioned.
Yeah.
And I've been in and out of town. I had every time I get back into town, it's like I'm packing up to go to the next city. So it's been a hectic travel month. And this month.
So where in Florida are you going? Are you going to Boca or where are you going?
It's Palm Beach.
Where's Palm Beach? Okay. Yeah.
But man, like we didn't talk about it, but this month that the Canadiens have, where they've already gotten off to 2-1-1 start on the road. This is a real test, right? Like no Gallagher, no Hoffman, no Savard. Monahan is being parked now for a little bit. I would think. I don't expect to see him Saturday. I don't expect to see him Monday. I would think, it's time to heal up from the injury.
Yeah. And the degree of difficulty in their games, Eric. I looked at their schedule before the season. I think I identified December 17th to January 5th, which I think is going to be the toughest stretch of their schedule all season. December 17th to
Arizona, whatever, but like into Arizona, into Colorado, where you're playing at altitude, no matter how banged up the Avs are, they're the Avs. Into Dallas, who I think is arguably the best team in the league. No disrespect to New Jersey and Boston, who have been unbelievable. They just play such a fast and heavy game and have such a great goaltender and such a good blue line. I mean, I think Dallas is made to go this year. Like, and they're only going to get better between now and the trade deadline. And then you've got the post Christmas Tampa, Florida, Washington, Nashville, Washington. The easiest of the teams, and yet like Ovechkin's chasing down Gordie Howe, and he always plays well against Montreal, and so do the Caps. So like this is going to be a really telling point in terms of what they're able to do and who they are in defining. But look, we're almost 30 games in, and I think we know who this team is, right? Like they're a resilient, tough group that
they're a competitive team.
They make their mistakes, but they find ways to score goals, and they find ways to stay in games. And there's only been one so far through, 27 or 26?
Yeah, they're competitive and they're exciting.
The only been one where they were terrible and like totally let up.
San Jose?
Not even the Buffalo game, I thought.
The Buffalo game, yeah.
Yeah, the 7-2 game. The San Jose, they just got beat. But yeah, I mean, like there hasn't been more than one game through this point in the season where you'd say like,
Buffalo really got obliterated. Yep.
No,
you're right. Tage Thompson and Skinner went to town on the Montreal Canadiens, and they went to town on the Columbus Blue Jackets tonight. It's funny. The line on that game was an over-under of 7, and I looked at it, and Columbus played a game yesterday versus Pittsburgh, and I think they totaled 5, and I was thinking, you know what? 7 might be a little high. Buffalo alone scored 9. My God, unbelievable. All right, Eric, so if all goes well, you and I will talk again on Tuesday. Thank you very much.
Sounds good. Thank you, Tony.
All right, thank you, buddy. There you have it, Eric Engels of Sportsnet. If you can, comment one word to describe Shane Wright scoring his first goal against the Habs last night. You can find this post. We put it on Twitter on the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro. We put it on Facebook on the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro's Facebook page. And you can also do a comment one word right now if you're watching Facebook Live, if you're watching Twitter Live, or if you're watching YouTube Live. Now it's not time to go for gold.
Go for gold. A daily World Cup report.
Alfonso Davies keeps it himself. Goal!
Presented by Bijouterie Bossy.
Alfonso Davies.
Go for Gold is brought to you by Bijouterie Bossy. Bossy has provided professional service and fine jewelry for over 30 years. Visit the store at 9640 Boulevard Saint Michel, whether it's for an engagement ring, a diamond ring, whether it's for a Bulova watch, or whether it's for a Ferrari watch, whether it's for a necklace like this or a bracelet like this, or beautiful 18-karat gold earrings, that and so much more at Bijouterie Bossy. Go by and see my good friend, very good friend, Jenny Dioris. All right. At the Qatar World Cup 2022, I can tell you that there's not much going on, of course, and now there are 8 teams that are left in the World Cup who have a chance to win. And they were off today. They're going to be off tomorrow. And there's going to be 2 games, 4 teams that'll play on Friday. And there'll be 2 games and 4 teams that'll play on Saturday. So there you have it. Quarterfinal games on Friday. Croatia versus Brazil at 10 a.m. Eastern. At 2 p.m. Eastern, it's Netherlands versus Argentina. And on Saturday, it's going to be Portugal versus Morocco. And Saturday afternoon, it's going to be England versus France. But take a look at those teams that are remaining. My God, the storylines that we can have can be absolutely unbelievable. We could end up having, bring it back up if we can. We could end up having, for example, a France versus Brazil World Cup final, which could be a rematch of 1998 when France hosted the World Cup, but Brazil was favorite, but France beat them by a score of 3-0. And if memory serves me well, it was Zinedine Zidane who had 2 goals off headers. Think about this. We could potentially see a World Cup final of Lionel Messi's Argentina versus Cristiano Ronaldo's Portugal, or Morocco can continue to do it. I mean, they're what a story. And Yassine Bono, their goalkeeper, who was born in Montreal, was on the front page of today's Journal de Montréal. Isn't that pretty cool for him to be on that front page? He stopped all 3 Spain penalties, which was absolutely unbelievable. Anyway, other than that, the story of the World Cup right now, there's a couple of stories that you're seeing that there's all different kinds of pictures of Cristiano Ronaldo either celebrating or not celebrating after Portugal's win. I know a lot of media are trying to make a story of something that is probably a story, or maybe even making a story out of something that isn't. You know, what we do know is he did salute, the fans. He did it before his team did. He left the field a little bit earlier. Cristiano Ronaldo's a proud guy. And look, I mean, no one should question whether or not he wants his team to win the World Cup, even if he doesn't score. I mean, of course he does. At the end of the day, it'll be part of his legacy if they do that, whether he contributes or he doesn't, he'll take Portugal winning a World Cup. But he's a very, very proud guy. He wants to push this GOAT debate as far as he can. Clearly, he didn't like the fact that he was on the bench yesterday for the first 72 minutes, and whether it was tactical or it wasn't tactical, or coaches, whatever it was, obviously he didn't like it. But, unfortunately, when you turn 37 years old, the law of physics kick in, and you're no longer going to be the same player. And as much as you could be a Ronaldo fan, he's still absolutely fantastic. I believe he has not said his last word in this World Cup, and he will score what will be a very, very important or a very, very huge goal at some point. I just get that feeling, because great players can do things when you want them to do things. I just would have preferred if he didn't do that interview that he did, throwing Man United, the entire board, the ownership group, the committee, the CA, and all that stuff under the bus, because it ended up putting a lot of pressure on him. And now the fact that he didn't start a game for Portugal and they were able to score as many goals as they did without him, and his replacement actually scored 3, it puts, it doesn't look good. But, all credit to Portugal. This is the best Portugal team that I have ever seen, and they are going to be a very, very tough out. And you know what? If they win it, I'll be happy, because it's a team that I've always appreciated watching the way they play. And they have one of the best grassroots development programs that they've ever had. One of the best that they've ever had. And they've been fun to watch. And they're really, really fun to watch. I know Kennedy says that's BS. Whatever I said, there's something that he doesn't agree with, and that's okay, because that's my opinion, and you don't have to agree with it. I have mine, you have yours, and at the end of the day, it doesn't mean you're right, and it doesn't mean that I'm wrong, right? It's just, you hear people out. I respect your opinion, whatever it may be, but they're a great team, and he's a great player. And we're watching a great World Cup so far. I know some people, I know you don't want Portugal, you want Argentina. Well, if Argentina would win, I'd love for Argentina to win, because Lionel Messi, after 7 Ballon d'Ors, deserves a World Cup. If Portugal wins, I'd love to see Portugal win, because after 5 Ballon d'Ors. Cristiano Ronaldo deserves a World Cup. I'd probably like to see Portugal maybe even win it more than Argentina, because Argentina has won a World Cup before. Unfortunately, Portugal has not. On that note, special thanks to Energy Transportation Group. Special thanks to Lacage. And of course, special thanks to 8.6 Beer, Intense by Nature. Special thanks to all of you, my sick army. If all goes well, it looks like it's going to be George Larac who's going to join us tomorrow. He's our contributor every Thursday night. And George Larac celebrated a birthday today as he turned 46 years of age. We'll wish him a happy birthday tomorrow. I'll wish him a happy birthday now, but I'll also do it tomorrow when he joins us. To all of you, the Sick Army, I love you. Thanks for watching. Tell all your friends about it. Hit the like button. Share it with your friends on Facebook. Tell your friends to subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's absolutely free because the host and the podcast is sick. Have a good one.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different, 8.6, intense by nature, and La Cage. If the last time you went to La Cage was when the Habs won the Cup, it's time you went back to La Cage. The menu will surprise you.